Welcome back to the channel. This is the Casuals. I'm
And
Jin.
I'm Saki.
And today's episode is Adventure Memories, and it's gonna be talking about, I guess, specifically my, adventure memory, with Disneyland, or rather specifically California Adventure. So many people who live in both Florida and California, most likely a lot of them, especially when you're in Southern California specifically, chances of you have gone to Disneyland is very high. I feel like not many people miss out on the experience of going to Disneyland. It's just a thing that most families do, anyways. And I had gone to Disneyland, but I was a child, like a straight up child. Like I don't remember anything about Disneyland except for like that whatever. What was it? It's a small world after all. You know that ride, whatever.
Yeah, with the little singing animatronic kid.
Yeah, that's kind of creepy to be honest.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, that's the only thing I remember because that thing was like creepy in itself, like the most creepy thing ever. Um, at least back in the day. So this was probably early 2000s, like 2007, I want to say 2008. And really I had no memory. And then so like the first time I actually went to like Disneyland, um, as a teenager, and it's the only time I ever went ever since then, was to California Adventure. And what California Adventure is, it's slightly different from Disneyland. California Adventure is basically like its own theme park, or amusement park that is kind of made for like the adults, you know? Like it's like basically not meant for children. That's basically the gist. There's still, I think there are still Disney themed rides there, right?
Yeah. There are it's
It's just
Disney themed. I want to say Disneyland is more rides and for kids, and California Adventure is for more of the adults because it's more food and drinks, I guess. Not as many
yeah.
attractions, I want to say.
Yeah, and like also California Adventure, I think also has like standalone, I think, rides that aren't necessarily Disney. Like unless I might be remembering this wrong, but they had like that the drop, whatever that hotel drop,
That's Disney
where
now.
they like get that's
That
Disney.
is Guardians of the Galaxy now.
Oh, okay. Because when I went there, it was like some kind of hotel,
Tower of
like
Terror.
yeah, Tower of Terror or something. I don't think it was even specifically. It's just known as like generically known as Tower's Terror or something like that. Um, But yeah, when I went there, so this was back then when before Disney absorbed Marvel into their, company or like franchise, I guess. So a lot of the rides that I'm probably gonna talk about don't exist anymore. It's just been so long. It's been over 10 years, I think. Almost 10 years? Yeah, I want to say almost 10 years, since I went. And so, um, my California Adventure memory is kind of a wild one. And so to explain how I even went there in the first place was I never really had interest in going to Disneyland. I didn't even know California Adventure even existed prior to this. Um, but the reason why we even went there was because I was part of band during my junior high. And a lot of the local junior highs near the Disney area tend to perform at the California Adventure area or Disney area, depending on whichever agreement they have, to showcase like the local school bands. And then after you perform, the local school band basically was like, hey, since you're here, why not just have fun? We're at the adventure theme park because why not? It's free, essentially. That's the whole point of what Disney does, and so you know that's how I went is because of the band doing the program, and during that time it just was only available to, I believe, the advanced band, whatever, like the highest level of band that there was during that junior high. And so um, we went and we performed, and what's crazy is that here's the first series of incidents, I guess, when we went to California Adventure. So I was really excited, you know, because I'd never really gone to amusement parks in the first place, like actual amusement parks, and the fact that California Adventure was the quote unquote more mature amusement park was like, something I thought I would experience, right? Back then I was terrified of roller coasters, like the idea of getting a roller coaster and everything. Like, you guys would like that, screaming your minds off, going at a high, pace danger ride, in which was my thought. But regardless of that, I was still excited to go there. And the first incident happened where we got all on stage and we started performing, right? Everything went normal, nothing wrong, everything's going smoothly, perfectly well. We had like a small audience. There's not really, these audiences don't exist because one, it's during like the weekday or something like that, and two, it's like in the early day, and like kind of like early afternoon. So like there's not many people in the first place. So it's around like 11 o'clock when we're performing. So there's no one there really. It's like just a couple of adults and that's it. But as we were playing, all of a sudden, because I played the clarinet, and thankfully I wasn't part of the upper area. So we have like the first clarinet section and second clarinet section. Basically, the first clarinet section usually does the more complicated stuff, and the second clarinet section is like the backing. You do less complicated things, and I was part of the second one, because I sucked. And as I was playing, I suddenly felt like a sharp electric pain in my neck. And luckily, I had the reflexes to not, like, because it was like this electric pain was in my neck, I almost, like, as I felt it, I almost blew into my clarinet, potentially making a weird noise. So it's like as if you're like drinking water and then all of a sudden you start coughing and you spew out water. Do you know that sometimes that happens?
Yep.
It was almost like that situation, and so I almost did it, but I managed to, like, let go of open my mouth so I don't like put air into the clarinet reed and the mouthpiece so that noise gets produced. And then I was just like, oh, that's weird, and I start looking around and I see off to my right, because I think there was someone to my right that I frequently talk to. And I look at her, and she looks at me while she's playing, right? And she's like, "What are you doing?" Right? She gives me the expression. I'm like, "I don't know. I couldn't talk because we're literally in the middle of a performance." And so, I got the. So after we looked at each other, I was like, "Okay, let me join up again." And I started playing again, right? And that jolt happened a second time during a different song when we were playing. I think we played a total of like 3 songs. And like the second song that happened again, and yet again I stopped myself from blowing into the mic or into the mouthpiece from producing like a weird duck noise or something like that with the clarinet. And again, once again, the person next to me looked at me and was like, well, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "You're gonna get your ass kicked for not playing properly because you're supposed to, you can't really slack off as much as I'm part of the second section, meaning that I don't have any important parts. It's still bad to slack off, obviously." And so, luckily, it didn't happen a third time. But this jolting pain has happened more frequently ever since then. But it rarely happens now. I don't know what the cause is, but literally that was the first time I ever had this kind of pain, and it happened. So that was crazy in itself already. And so the performance over, we did well, and then the band conductor or teacher, both teacher and conductor, gathers us all around, and he tells us like, "Hey, you did a good performance, you did a great job. Since we're here, as I told you before, you guys get to play around, have fun, do whatever you want for your time. The rest of the time that we have, apparently we had so we finished we started at 11, finished at 12, and up to 8 o'clock was the time when we have to all group up again and then leave the park. I think that was the curfew or something like that. And so he's telling us this, and then he added one more note, which I don't, from what I remember, I think he did tell us before, but I just didn't remember it. And so I was kind of surprised when he said this, when he was talking to us again during that day. He's like, "Oh yeah, just to remind you, you guys, since you're students, right, since you're little children, you guys are not allowed to be alone. You have to be in a group with at least one other person, ideally 2. Groups of 3 or groups of 2. And should I catch you being alone, you're gonna have to stick this rest of the day with me. And everyone's just like, oh God, I don't want to be next to him. He's an old man. We would rather, kids would rather stay with the kids and, would never want to be paired up with an adult type situation. And so here comes my second problem. I was a loner in my band. I didn't really have anyone that I was close to. I wasn't very well liked anyways. So it was kind of an awkward situation. And so everyone scatters. And I'm left alone in this park where there's a teacher. There's like 2 teachers roaming around. I think one's like the band teacher and the other one's like an assistant teacher or something like that, just to keep track of all the kids. And so here I am alone with the looming threat of being discovered by the teacher right away, of being like, hey, you don't have a partner? Okay, you're stuck with me now. And so, in hindsight, it probably would have been better to stick with the teacher, but, me being a kid or like a teenager being like, no, I don't want to stick with the teacher, that's, lame. I was like, you know what? I'm going to enjoy this park alone. And so I did. Except for, I got one thing wrong. I did not enjoy the park. What happened was, I kid you not, for 6 hours straight, I walked around the park alone, doing absolutely nothing. Can you believe that?
That is actually quite impressive.
I think what was more impressive is that I did not run into the teacher once. I saw him once in the distance, and I ran away.
That's when you just turn the other direction and walk away.
He was in the line waiting with like other students, who happened to be in the same, like, waiting for the same ride as him. And I was just like, I see him, I was like, okay, that's good enough. And I turn around and walk away. And so for 6 hours, I was alone, just walking by myself. Well, that's kind of a lie. For about 30 minutes, there was one time. So I guess this is another part of the story. Is that once I met with a group of guys who were okay with me, right? They were chill with me. I had nothing against them. They had nothing against me. So we were like, and they were waiting at the water log ride, right? Do you know what it's called? Like Splash Mountain, was it?
That's in Disney.
Oh, it was something similar to Splash Mountain, where you're in like a tube, like that round tube,
Oh, like kind of like the Bigfoot Rapids or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I think it was that.
I think Bigfoot Rapids is actually in Disney. It's called something else though. There.
Oh gosh, I just remember there was like just that water ride in California Adventure. This might have been in Disneyland now that I think about it. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it was in California Adventure, because there was that big roller coaster, which I'll talk about soon, which is a whole nother story. But essentially, one of them waved at me. He's like, "Hey, join us," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I joined them, right? And so here's the thing: we were, kids that were woefully unprepared. We brought no extra clothes, so we went in, right? And as we seated in and locked in our seats, one of us looks at each other, like, hey, aren't we supposed to get wet on this ride? And we're like, yeah, like, because, that's the obvious. You're supposed to get wet on this ride. That's the whole purpose of this ride. And he's just like, yeah, well, but do we have any clothes to go change into after? And we were just like, uh-oh. We all looked at each other, we're like, well then. And so before anybody else could say anything, the launch, like, the announcer, like, whatever, the person who, like, does, like, the call, whatever, says, like, oh, okay, we're get ready for the ride and everything. We set off. And so we're just like, damn, we best hope we don't get wet, right? And so we were literally, like, kind of at a vendetta, like, all right, who's gonna get wet, right? Who's gonna get the most wet out of all of us? Because we're all gonna get wet to some degree, right? But who's gonna get the unlucky, like, the end of the straw, short end of the stick, right? And so, we were riding, and, like, it's turbulent and our why it's starting to down. I got a little bit wet, and the scary thing for us was really we had our phones in our pocket, which is generally what you don't want to do when you're on a ride, or at least you want to have some waterproof around it. Phones were also not quote unquote waterproof back in the day. I think this was when, like, the iPhone 5 was out. So yeah, these phones were not made for water. And so at the very end, we get to that, like, that part where like a lot of water splashes, right? And we're like, oh god, so we're all like, like extremely tense. We're like, oh god, here it comes, right? And so the wave splashes in, and I remember just the look on everyone's faces when it happened to be the guy across from me who just got absolutely drenched, right? He just got drenched from head to toe, just absolutely covered in water. And I got off relatively scot-free. I literally only got like a few like drops on my pants, and that's it. And so the ride ends, and so you see three relatively dry dudes. And then there's one just soaking wet coming out of the ride. Like his shoes are making that squeaky noise,
That little squish when
yeah. Yeah. So every time one is just squish, 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 and then the three dudes are like, my condolences. Like you just see that one dude just like so unfortunate, right? And the teacher finally comes over. He happened to pass away. He's like, oh man, you guys got wet, right? And we're like, yeah. And he walks away, right? And I'm like, all right. It was fun with you all, but I'm a peace out. So peace. And so I walk away, right? And then basically for like the next 3 hours, I was alone again. So there was that one time where I was with another group, but just because I happened to like wander into them, but the rest was literally alone. And then it wasn't until like after that 6 hours, I met up with another group of people that were okay with me, and so they were like, hey, just follow us, It's like, so like, okay. Also, like, they were like, oh, so when they saw me, they're like, are you alone? I'm like, yeah. And it's like, how long have you been alone? I'm like, ever since we scattered. And they were just, holy shit. Like, you managed to avoid the teacher the entire time for like, and they're like, what time is it? It's like 6:30, and they're like, what the hell? You've been alone for 6 hours? What are you doing? Have you done anything? I'm like, no. I didn't ride any rides, by the way, by myself. I literally just wandered around looking at stuff. Do you know, like, how ridiculous it is to not even ride any of the rides when you're there? It's kind of crazy. And two, I didn't eat anything. I had no money. So they don't provide. So like what the band does is that, like, they don't give you money to use in order to buy your food or yourself. That's literally on your own discretion to purchase your own food, right? And I just remember being told, like, oh, Disney food is really expensive, or like, theme park food is really expensive. They're like $10 for like a burger or something like that. I remember back then, and just remember I was like, all right, well, I'm not gonna bring any money then, because I know I would spend it stupidly, and that's a waste of money. So I literally went into the theme park like a dumb person with no money, and so every time I passed by one of those food places, I had no money to spend, even if I was hungry. I would just be staring at the food. I'm like, that looks good, but I have no money to spend. Can you imagine just like I was a pitiful kid back then. They're like, oh yeah, you haven't eaten anything? I'm like, no. And they're like, you're dumb, you know that, right? I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm dumb. And so do you remember those giant turkey legs that they sold? I don't know if they sell them now, but they used to sell those giant turkey legs.
They still do. They're like close to, I want to say, maybe $16 to $20, somewhere in between there.
Gotcha. Because during my time, it was $10. So it was $10 a leg, right? And so 2 people bought them when I was with the group, and we were eating it, and they're like, dude, I can't finish this all. They're like, who wants it? And I was like, I'll take it. So I took the chicken leg, or I took the turkey legs, and I ate them all. And I was so hungry because, again, I had been walking around for 6 hours, basically. I got a serious cardio workout because of that. Especially when it was in the heat, too. And so, like, I got free 2 turkey legs that I was barely eating into because, these guys were like, oh my god, it's too big. Like, I had a burger earlier or whatever. And so I was walking around with, like, eating turkey legs, and the teacher showed up again, and then he spotted me and was like, oh, like, you guys having fun and everything, and he walked away, doing whatever he wanted. And so here comes the second ride, where they went to the Tower of Terror. Here's the fun part. I had apparently rode the Tower of Terror ride, but I don't remember anything about it. So either one of two things happened. It was so traumatic, or it was just like nothing. Like I literally just don't remember. And the reason why I feel like it was one of those two options heavily was because I'm more leaning into traumatic is because I don't like being in high places. I don't like fear. Like in a hotel, if I'm like on the 20th something floor, like I don't care. The thing that makes me nervous is that if I'm high up and I can see the ground, that's when I get a little scared, you know? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like kind of more open.
Yeah, like or like you're like there's glass underneath you, you're like I do not want to go on top of that glass.
Yeah, I get you.
It's like it doesn't matter how much of a genius like engineer you are, no matter how foolproof like you may make it seem, I do not want to step on that glass. On that very, 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 very small possibility of that glass cracking, right? And even then, they probably have fail-safes where if the glass cracks, right, it doesn't like break all the way through. Like there's layers of it, so like you don't like fall through, right? Even then, I'm just like, nope. Solid ground seems nice. I'm that type of person, Yeah, I just don't like looking over edges too. Like I always get that like that sinking feeling in your stomach.
Like, what if I fall over the edge?
Yeah. I'm just like, that's scary, man. So I never really liked it. So that's why I don't think I could remember the Tower of Terrors, because I either wrote it and I just don't remember anything because it was uneventful, like it was literally just like whatever, or two, I was so traumatized by it that I just don't want to remember ever again. But I think like even though despite I say I might lean actually towards the more traumatized, I actually think realistically nothing eventful happened, because I actually ended up riding a roller coaster right after that. So but yeah, me and my friend were just having a discussion, talking yada yada yada, and then he turns to me and he's like, "Hey, you want to go ride like California Adventure ride, the main roller coaster ride? That's literally like I think that's the ride named California Adventure."
It was called California Screamin', but now it's the Incredicoaster, so it's now Incredible themed.
Oh, okay, interesting. California Screaming, yeah. And so he's like, "You want to ride that, right?" And mind you, I mentioned this before. I was terrified of roller coasters, just the concept of it. I had never ridden a roller coaster before in my entire life. I had always avoided it. Whenever possible, whenever I went to like other theme parks, I had never ever gone to ride a roller coaster, and but for some reason I was just like, I suffered enough. I walked 6 hours. Screw it. I'm gonna go all out and ride this damn ride, right? Because I was also being like half convinced, like this isn't really extreme. It's just like pretty tame for a roller coaster ride. There's only like one really major like drop, if that makes sense. But that's about it. And so he's like, you know what? I'll do it. And so I go in with my buddy and we get in the seats and we get locked in, right? And I'm nervous, right? And so we get locked in. I'm just like, all right. Hopefully I don't throw up. That's the only thing I care about. I don't want to throw up. I don't want to be one of those guys who throws up on the ride, And we slowly depart, and then we start picking up speed, and then it starts going like there's the twists and turns and everything. And the entire time, I just remember from thinking like don't throw up to just turning mind empty. Literally, I just could not think. And I think a mixture was I was so terrified, but also I just didn't know what to think because this was my very first ride, right? And so you could see a stark contrast between me and my friend. My friend is like screaming, smiling, having fun, yelling, going woohoo. And there I am, just dead silent with this poker face. The entire ride, just dead silent. And this was at like 7 o'clock, I want to say, close to night. It was dark. It was getting really dark during that time. And so we're going through and everything. He's screaming and everything, and we get to the tip top, right? We go to that part where where you slowly go up, right? Go like to a peak, whatever, a peak area, and you go down really fast. And my friend looks at me, he's like, all right, get ready for the big highlight, right? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, oh yeah, they're gonna take a photo of us, by the way. I'm like, wait, what? I didn't know about this. Apparently they can take a photo of you when you go down the ride, like the big jump or the big drop. And I was like, I wasn't informed of this. Why am I getting a picture, right? And so we get to the peak. I'm just like, I look down, right? Because I think we were closer to the front. We're not exactly in the front, but we were closer to the front, like maybe like 4 seats from the front. And I just looked down. I'm just like, dear Lord, we are so high up, and my ass just clenched. I just remember my ass clenching really hard. I was like, bucker up, boy, because there's only one or two ways going. I'm either gonna be okay or I'm gonna be a mess of number 2 just coming straight out of my ass. And so we go down, and it's extremely fast, right? And all I remember is just my mind went blank yet again because I just did not know what to think. I could not register what to think when I was going down this ride. And then we finally get down to the end. You know, my friend was screaming, you know, very happy. He was like on a high, essentially, you know. And, you know, you get to the end and you get off, and then you walk out, and then there's like this booth where you can see the photos, right? And if you want, you can purchase your photo in order to take back home with you, right? And so we're all looking, right? We're all looking for our, you know, photos. You know, it takes some time for it to upload and everything, and you know, there's multiple photos being shown because each like section has its own like photo. So it's not like the entire roller coaster. It's like, or like roller coaster ride. It's like sections of the cart, whatever, has photos for it. And so I look over, and then I see our photo. Here you see 2 dudes. One on the left having the absolute time of his life. His mouth is wide open. He seems like, you know, he's exhilarated. You know, he's screaming. His hair is all up, right? The second dude on the right, you see nothing. You just see a blank poker face. Absolutely no expression whatsoever. Just dead, like cold, like poker face. Just you would think that he's in the wrong place. Like, you're like, why on earth is he on this ride? Yeah, that was me. I had that poker face, and everyone just started laughing because I just did not have a seat. Like, everyone else who went with the ride with us, there was like 8 people in total that went on the ride. I was the only one who did not have a single expression whatsoever, and they were just like, "What on earth were you thinking? Like, were you like, did your dog die when you were going on this roller coaster or something like that?" I was just like, no, I just couldn't think of anything. And so I remember taking a photo of that. I lost the photo, and I wish I had it, but I lost the photo. And it's just a photo of my friend next to me, you know, having the time of life, and there I am looking like I'm absolutely miserable on that ride, on like the, you know, peak, what they would call the peak, like, you know, part of that, like the climax of that ride. And so, you know, that was you know, quite a roller coaster. And after that, I was like, oh, you know, roller coasters are not bad. You know, maybe I'll ride one again in the future, right? After that, I never went to an amusement park again. Literally, after that, never went to an amusement park. Never went back to any whatsoever. Never rode a roller coaster ride whatsoever. So, you know, to this day, I have not kept my word of maybe, you know, I'll go ride a roller coaster again.
So that was a lie.
It was. And that was pretty much it for my, I want to say, for my whole experience of this California Adventure ride. I guess there was one more interesting one where I saw an old lady throw up on a what's it called? You know those where you put those babies in the stroller? I saw an old lady throw up into a stroller.
Hot.
And I heard a baby cry right after.
Oh my gosh, you didn't throw up on a baby.
I saw it from the distance. I didn't see the baby. All I heard was a baby crying after. And I was just like, okay. And I walked away. And I guess another one was, I guess another like funny story, I guess fun little story is that my friend after the ride, right? The same friend that when I went to with the ride in, he's like, shoot, where's my phone? And he's like, I can't find my phone. Turns out, or no, this was during the ride actually. When we were in the ride, he looks at me and yells at me and says, I think I lost my phone. Meaning that he probably dropped it. And I looked at him, I'm like, what? Are you crazy? How'd you lose your phone? He's like, I had it in my hand. I'm like, you dumbass. But it turns out at the end of the ride, he was extremely lucky, by the way. I guess the centripetal force, or like some like force, like the way physics works, right? Is that his phone ended up being on the ground. Like, if that makes it, like the seat, whatever, the bottom part of the roller coaster cart,
Uh-huh.
it just stuck there ever since he dropped it. But I guess we were going so fast that like the phone just never flew out, and it was perfectly fine, which we were even more amazed because I felt like it should have been damaged at some point because like the amount of rolling we did, or like moving around we did. Nope, it was perfectly fine somehow.
Was it a Nokia?
It was one of those. I think it was one of those BlackBerry phones.
Oh, okay. So,
Like, you know those old, like, you know, those slide phones?
yeah.
The sideways ones? Not the flip phone, but like the slide phones with like the keypad and everything. It was one of those. So yeah, that was like one heck of a, you know, discovery that he lost his phone, but it was perfectly fine in the end. I think it was one of those phones, yeah. And then, and apparently one other student lost their phone on the ride and then it broke. So we all called him dumbass for doing that, you know, typical kid things. Like, haha, you dropped your phone in the ride, you're stupid. I think I was worried about my phone, but because I think my pants that time were like pretty like secure, like I didn't have to worry too much about it, and my phone never had any issues. But overall, yeah, that was my California Adventure, you know, ride. And I think at the very end when we were all getting in the bus and everything, he's like, the teacher was like, oh yeah, I caught one student alone, so he had to stick with me the entire day, and I was just like, thank God that wasn't me.
You got lucky. You were the lucky one.
I got lucky for managing to roam 6 hours without being caught by him once, alone. That is. I think like I said before, I encountered him like twice, but that's when I was within a group. And I think literally those two rides were the only rides or three rides were the only rides I ever rode in an amusement theme park, which is crazy, or that I can remember as a teen, right? Which is the water theme, the water one, the Tower of Terror, and then the California Screaming. That's it. I've only achieved riding those three. I could have rode a ton of other things, but I just never did it.
Impressive. Going a whole day and riding 3 things.
Yeah. It was it was not too fond of a memory, I would say, overall. There were some good parts, but mostly just meh because I just felt tired after. But yeah, that's my adventure for California Adventure. Changed a lot as you even mentioned some of the changes, like the Incredibles replacing the California Screaming, and then like the Tower of Terror being replaced by the Guardians of the Galaxy, I believe you said.
Yep. I think ever since they acquired Marvel and stuff, they changed a lot.
Yeah. So, will I ever probably go back to an amusement park? Probably never. I don't see myself going back to an amusement park. I honestly don't. Especially because the way I am is I'm kind of a money scrubber, so I'm like, is it really worth the money? And then I just think to myself, no, it's not. Never. So yeah. That's it. I know you have a few stories, but we could always save it for next time. And do you just wanted to add anything else?
Yeah, actually it has to do with the same ride. The first one you were talking about, that water tube ride.
Uh-huh.
So one of my friends, I don't know if he still works there, but he worked at Disney, so he could get, you know, people in for free. So he got himself and like 2 others in free that day. And a couple of our other friends had passes, so they went as well. And this was during a weekday. I think we were in high school. It was like after school one day. We just decided to go. And we went in. No one's there. It was dead because it was like 6 p.m. already. So we were like, let's ride that water ride. The wait time is like 1 minute. And everyone's like, yeah, sure, let's go. And of course, we didn't bring any clothes either, but extra spare clothes. So we just went on. And we went through. We're like, oh, that was fun. Like, some of us got wet, like, not like super duper wet. Some of us were still dry. And the ride operator was like, there's no one in line. You want to just go again? Yeah, we do. We did that for like close to 3 hours. We didn't even get off. He just kept us going. We were literally just going through the ride every time we'd come by at the beginning where you hop on and the there's there. We're like, we all chanted at the same time. One more time. And so we'd be like, okay, and we'd go. We chanted that like, I think we went through like 15 times. We finally got off. It was like 8:39 p.m. and we're all just giggling, you know, with the squishy shoes and stuff.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, I think we're good to go. And so we left. I think that's all we did. We rode that like 15 times and we left.
Oh my god, did any of you get sick?
No, but we rode it straight. We never got off.
Dang, that's an achievement in itself.
We just sat in that tube and chanted one more time every time we passed them.
Hey man, if you're the operator that happened to be operating that ride on that particular day where you got a bunch of high school kids saying one more time on you just let them do it, you're a real one.
I mean, no one was there. It was close to closing. Who wants to ride a water ride? You know, 6 p.m. It's getting dark. It's cold.
Yeah.
And so we're like, yeah, screw it. Let's just keep going until we get tired of it. And then he was like, oh, the park's, you know, closing. I forget what time it was. It closes, but it was like, oh, we're closing soon, so we're gonna have to, you know, you can either ride it like one more time, or we're gonna have to like have you, you know, get off so we could start, you know, shutting down. And so we just decided to get off, but everyone was just soaking wet. It was hilarious.
Just imagine, I can imagine just like 5 or 4 dudes just penguin walking while wet. Just
Yep, you just hear that with shoes.
Oh, that sounds like a great old time. Well, I mean, we could probably talk about this next time. You know, the next time we're recording again. So, but we'll just have to end it here. So I'm Jin.
And I'm Saki.
And this is The Casuals, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.